Today, I'm looking at what happens when entitled climbers think the rules don't apply to them on Everest. From a wealthy real estate developer who screamed at her Sherpa to fix a broken ladder in the Khumbu Icefall, then tried to summit alone when the team refused to a social media influencer who faked altitude sickness to get helicopter evacuation, then demanded a refund from her expedition company. Two climbers who learned that being a Karen at 29,000 feet gets you killed. It was May 12, 2024. Everest's Khumbu Icefall, 18,500 feet, temperature -8 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice constantly shifting and groaning beneath their feet. Patricia Wainwright was 52 years old, a luxury real estate broker from Scottsdale, Arizona. She had paid $85,000 for her Everest expedition and believed that entitled her to whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted it. Her only high-altitude experience was a helicopter tour of Everest Base Camp the previous year, and she had worn crampons exactly 0 times before this expedition. On May 10th, her expedition team reached Camp 1 at 19,500 feet. Patricia immediately began complaining about the food, the sleeping arrangements, and the fact that there were other climbers on the mountain. She demanded a private tent when the group had only shared tents. When her lead Sherpa, Tenji, explained that private tents weren't available at Camp 1, Patricia screamed at him for 10 minutes. Other climbers recorded the outburst, calling him incompetent and threatening to have him fired. The warning signs were obvious. Her guides noted her refusal to follow safety protocols. She would unclip from fixed ropes in the icefall to take selfies. She skipped acclimatization rotations because they were too boring. Dr. Pemba Sherpa, the expedition doctor, wrote in his log that Patricia had a resting heart rate of 110 beats per minute at base camp, a sign of poor acclimatization, but she refused medication because she didn't trust mountain medicine. The inciting incident came on May 14th. The team was crossing a 3-ladder section in the upper icefall at 20,000 feet. One ladder had shifted overnight, creating a gap. Patricia reached the broken ladder at 7:23 a.m. and stopped. When her Sherpa, Tenji, told her to wait while he stabilized it, Patricia began screaming. Witnesses heard her say, "I paid $85,000. Fix it now. I don't have time for your incompetence." Tenji tried to explain that rushing could collapse the entire ladder bridge. Patricia grabbed the fixed rope and tried to cross anyway. Her crampon caught on a loose rung. She lost her grip at 7:26 a.m. She fell 30 feet into a crevasse, landing on her left side on an ice ledge 15 feet down. The escalation was immediate. Team members lowered a rope. Patricia was conscious but had a compound fracture of her left femur bone visible through her down suit. Tenji reached her at 7:41 a.m. She was still demanding things, yelling at him to get her out faster, complaining that her leg hurt and that this was his fault for not fixing the ladder properly. They extracted her at 8:15 a.m. The rescue descent through the icefall took 4 hours. Patricia was in and out of consciousness. Her oxygen saturation was 62% at 19,000 feet. Anything below 70% at that altitude indicates severe injury combined with hypoxia. The death moment came at 12:47 p.m. on May 14th, 2024, at Everest Base Camp, 17,500 feet. Dr. Pemba had set up an emergency trauma station. Patricia's leg was splinted, but internal bleeding from the femur fracture had been ongoing for over 5 hours. Her blood pressure was 70/40 when she arrived. She looked at Tenji, the man she had screamed at, and said, "You should have just fixed the ladder." Then she stopped breathing. Resuscitation attempts failed. She died of hemorrhagic shock complicated by high-altitude pulmonary edema. The aftermath was damning. The expedition company released their incident report on June 3, 2024. It documented 17 separate complaints from Patricia, including demands that other climbers be removed from the route, that she be given helicopter transport through the icefall, and that her Sherpa carry her backpack despite weight limits. Tenji gave a statement to the Nepal Mountaineering Association. He said, "I have guided Everest for 12 years. I have never seen someone so unwilling to listen. The mountain does not care about your money." Patricia's family sued the expedition company for $15 million. The case was dismissed in October 2024 when audio recordings of Patricia screaming at Tenji were entered into evidence. Her husband told the Arizona Republic she was just passionate about getting what she paid for. The comment section was not kind, but Patricia Wainwright wasn't the only entitled climber on Everest that season. A different kind of Karen was about to make a demand that would get her banned from Nepal entirely. It was May 19, 2024. Everest's North Col, 23,000 feet. Temperature minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind blowing 40 miles per hour from the Tibetan Plateau. Jenna McAllister was 28 years old, a fitness influencer with 2.4 million Instagram followers from Los Angeles, California. She had built her brand on extreme wellness content, juice cleanses, cryotherapy, and simulated altitude training in hypoxic tents. She claimed to have climbed Kilimanjaro in 2022, but later investigation revealed she had helicoptered from the last camp to the summit after complaining of severe altitude symptoms that no doctor could confirm. On May 15th, Jenna arrived at Everest Base Camp on the Tibetan side. She immediately began filming content, posing in her expensive mountaineering gear, showing off her branded oxygen mask, talking about how she was mentally preparing for the death zone. Her assigned Sherpa, Pasong, noticed within hours that she had no idea how to use her crampons. She had never practiced self-arrest with an ice axe. She had never slept above 10,000 feet. The warning signs were everywhere. Jenna refused to participate in the team's acclimatization schedule. She said she didn't need it because she had trained in a hypoxic tent for 6 months. Dr. Tashi Wangil, the expedition physician, explained that simulated altitude doesn't replace real acclimatization. Jenna told him he was just trying to scare her for more money. On May 18th, the team climbed to the North Col at 23,000 feet. Jenna's oxygen saturation was 68%, dangerously low for a resting reading at that altitude. Dr. Tashi advised her to descend and try again after 2 rest days. Jenna refused. She said, "My followers expect me to summit on May 20th. I have sponsored posts scheduled." The inciting incident came on May 19th at 6:42 a.m. Jenna woke up at Advanced Base Camp, 21,000 feet, and announced that she had a headache. When Dr. Tashi checked her vitals, her oxygen saturation was 71%, her heart rate was 118. Jenna demanded that a helicopter be called to evacuate her to a hospital in Lhasa. Dr. Tashi explained that she did not meet the criteria for altitude-related emergency evacuation. Her symptoms were mild and would resolve with descent and hydration. Jenna escalated immediately. She began screaming that she had HACE, high altitude, cerebral edema, despite showing no symptoms, no confusion, no loss of coordination, no altered mental status. She called her agent in Los Angeles at 7:15 a.m. and told him to call the embassy, call the Chinese authorities, do whatever it takes to get me a helicopter. What Jenna didn't know was that her call was being monitored. The Tibetan Mountaineering Association had installed communication monitors at Advanced Base Camp after a series of fake distress calls in 2023. Her agent called the U.S. Embassy in Beijing at 8:30 a.m. The embassy contacted Chinese rescue services. A helicopter was dispatched from Lhasa at a cost of $47,000, money that would ultimately be billed to Jenna's travel insurance. When the helicopter arrived at 10:15 a.m., a Chinese rescue doctor examined Jenna. He spent 12 minutes checking her vitals, her coordination, her mental status. His report, later released to expedition companies, stated, "Patient shows no clinical signs of altitude illness. Oxygen saturation 74% at rest. Gait normal. Speech normal. Patient is requesting evacuation for headache only. This is not medically justified," Jenna demanded again. The rescue team, following protocol, loaded her into the helicopter at 10:33 a.m. She was flown to Lhasa, where she spent 2 nights in a private hospital room, posting Instagram stories from her bed captioned "Surviving HACE on Everest, so grateful for the rescue team." The posts were deleted 6 hours later when she realized the backlash was starting. The death of her career came on May 25, 2024. The Tibetan Mountaineering Association released a statement. Jenna McAllister had been banned from climbing in Tibet for 10 years for making a fraudulent distress call. Additionally, her travel insurance company denied her $47,000 claim after obtaining the rescue doctor's report. She was personally responsible for the entire cost. The aftermath was brutal. Expedition companies worldwide shared her name on private guides forums. By June 2024, no major guiding service would accept her. Her Instagram engagement dropped 73% after mountaineering. Influencers publicly debunked her story. A GoFundMe she started to cover unexpected medical expenses from my Everest rescue raised $340 before she shut it down. In September 2024, she posted a tearful apology video titled, "I made mistakes on Everest," but the comments were disabled within 4 hours. Dr. Tashi Wangwol gave an interview to Outside Magazine in November 2024. He said, "She never had altitude sickness. She had entitlement sickness. The difference is altitude sickness clears up when you go down. Entitlement sickness follows you home." Two climbers, Mount Everest, both thought the rules didn't apply to them. One screamed at her Sherpa until a crevasse shut her up. The other screamed for a helicopter until a bill for $47,000 shut her up. If you want more stories about entitled climbers getting what they deserve, watch this next episode where a tech CEO fires his guide at Camp 3 and tries to summit alone.